Is it possible to build your diet around protein and healthy fats? And the answer is yes. I'm going to go with yes. Hey, everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. All right. This is one of the nutrition methods that I often advocate. And I want to be clear. I've had a few different approaches I've discussed as far as the way people do macros. And, I always tell people there isn't a one size fit all. But there are general categories that will probably work for you and your goals. And a lot of times I do talk to people about doing the very high carbohydrate, very low fat diets of mostly healthy carbs. But for some people, even lean bulking that way, even doing a lot of white rice or whatever they need to do, right? Like a chicken, rice, and broccoli low fat bulk is a perfectly viable way to gain muscle and stay fairly lean while you do it. In fact, I've had some clients who can't even gain fat at all when they do that. But another approach that I do like to discuss is actually what I'm doing at the moment. People see me getting leaner and all this stuff as I go, is again someone who has a history of not being lean and who's actually been over 300 pounds. Something I'm currently doing and I've advocated for in the past is lower carbohydrate approaches to where we're not doing like you would think of as a traditional keto diet, all right? Because I'm not a believer in the, hey, let's just eat steak and bacon. So when I say this, I'm talking about higher protein and then healthy fats. I'm not talking about loading on excessive amount of, fat from red meat. I mean, some is okay, but it needs to be moderated to some extent. Okay, it needs to be moderated. And you really do need things like fiber, phytonutrients. You need the healthier fats, a lot of polyunsaturated fats, to keep your lipid profile in check and everything when doing that, and to keep insulin sensitivity high. So the approach I would discuss here is actually a great way to get leaner because it tends to lower bloat. It tends to keep inflammation down, right? This is sort of approach to where you eat a lot of healthy fats, and you still keep fat fairly high, but you moderate the saturated fat, right? Totally viable approach. And the things to keep in mind when carbs are taken a little lower like that, okay, when the carbs are taken a little lower and we're not eating things that inflame you too much, again, you're not going too hard, not eating a bunch of bacon and all that. Too much fatty red meat, keeping the red meats lean or, either minimal or very, very, very lean, okay? Eating the healthier fats, eating your walnuts, your avocados, your fatty fish. So mixtures of and even nuts and things. So mixtures of omega-3, omega-6, and then even plant-based MUFAs, right? Monounsaturated. All right, when you do that, you tend to look leaner, okay? It tends to take your waistline down. It tends to make you look a little tighter. Now, can it make you look flat to a certain extent? Yes, and you need to be aware of that. But if your insulin sensitivity is really high and you do this sort of diet correctly, you're still not going to look really depleted like people would think of. Yeah, right? You're not going to really look that way. But you're going to look leaner because, again, it's going to take the waistline down. It's going to take stomach bloat down. It's going to take inflammation through your GI tract down. Make that waist smaller, make it tighter, which is what I'm actually currently working on doing because I still have loose skin from being fat. So how does this approach work? People say, well, can we build muscle this way? Can we do this way? Well, if you're going this route, you are still going to have quite a bit of plant-based fats, and that's going to come with what? It's going to come with fiber, and it's going to come with carbohydrate. Because one of the biggest problems with a lot of even these traditional keto diets, they still reduce insulin sensitivity because it's too much saturated fat, and then you're still not getting enough carbohydrate, maybe not even enough protein to really fuel your training. Okay, because you do need a certain amount of carb to fuel training. But then if we start adding direct, high GI carbs or whatever in there to pull it off, what happens? We pick up some water, right? Especially in the gut and everything, the GI tract. So by going with an approach like this, you'll probably get enough carbohydrate. So let's say you do Greek yogurts and stuff in there a little bit, or even some of the really ultra purified milks like Fairlife or something like Fairlife or Mootopia. You're going to get some carbs. If you're eating some nut butter, some walnuts, some avocados, you're going to get a little bit of carbohydrate from those things. possibly enough to fuel your training, and you're going to get the rest from the protein. So if you keep protein really high on a dietary approach like this, between that and those trace amount of carbs, because if you're eating those other things, you're probably getting 40, 50 grams sometimes of carbohydrates from all those other foods I just listed up to. If you're eating a large, excessive amount of proteins beyond what we would normally need, what happens? You're going to get some extra from gluconeogenesis, right? You're going to convert some of that at an expensive cost, both in terms of money and in terms of calories, but you're going to get a little bit of carbohydrate to train on. You're going to get enough to refill your glycogen stores. All right, this idea that low carbs automatically equals low glycogen is not true. That's not what the research shows in athletes. And once they adapt to it, their glycogen stores tend to be full. In particular, if they're eating enough trace carbs to do that. And the other thing to think about with that, glycogen stores being full, what if you eat fat sources that improve insulin sensitivity? All those healthy fats, unlike the saturated fat, right? It's always called a lot of this egg avocado type diet. Again, you can also get omega-3 eggs, right? Lean steak, eggs, and avocados, kind of a basis. Maybe some fatty fish and stuff. Those are baseline foods, okay? Those things improve insulin sensitivity, unlike the purely saturated fats. If you eat just tons of red meat for your fat source, yeah, you're going to have insulin resistance. Even on low carbs, that's been found to be true. But these other fats enhance it. If you have high insulin sensitivity, even the protein that you're converting into glucose, it's going to go to your muscle tissue, okay? We're going to get a nice healthy insulin response. It's going to go to your muscle tissue. Your glycogen stores are not going to be depleted. You're going to have enough to train on. But what is the other thing we get with all this? Reduced inflammation. So a diet like this, we're also going to have lower inflammatory responses from all the healthy fats. Okay? What's that going to do possibly for recovery? It's great for recovery. We could argue the really high carb might give a little more training performance on volume, but I'm finding that's not always the case. I've definitely observed in people who I know personally, even the lower carb, they're able to still put out enormous workloads. And I've watched it firsthand with people of stuff I've observed. It really does show me that some of these studies saying you can do this, particularly once you're fat adapted, showing that it really is true. And I hate to have to admit it as someone who thought potentially otherwise, but I've watched it. I've watched it firsthand and realized it's a viable approach. You don't need a large amount of dietary carb to train. Really high volumes of even lifting and cardio, not always. Again, depending on how good a shape the person is in, how high their insulin sensitivity due to the training and stuff. So it's okay, you get away with it, it's fine. But the added healthy fats, you're going to get good recovery from the lower inflammation. Okay? This is an absolutely viable approach for building an impressive physique. Absolutely viable approach. As long as the fats are mostly healthy fats. And you keep that protein really high. I mean, talking higher than the 1 gram per pound of body weight. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.